Hey everybody, what's going on? What's hot? What's hip? What's happening? What's shaking on your Monday night? Hope you had a great weekend and stuff and things. And I don't know what make that car is. Maybe we should freeze frame it sometime. It's a piece of junk. It's a piece of junk. I keep not doing the front of my hair right before the show, and then I get on the show, and it's obvious to me and to everybody else. Hey, today I'm going to tell you about the assassination of James Abram Garfield, which, admittedly, is not as popular as, say, the Kennedy assassination or the Lincoln assassination, but I'm going to tell you about it, and hopefully it'll become more popular. Because for my money, it's just as good as a presidential assassination as the rest of them. You know, Aku says that car might be a Fiesta or a Focus. I have no idea. Hey, if you could do us a favor, like, share, subscribe, retweet, bell notification, all that stuff. It's completely free. As you know, we are monetized now, so you can feel free to give super chats if you'd like, or memberships. And if you look in the crawl right this minute, you can see the address to turn on gifted memberships. For all I know, there are existing gifted memberships out there right this second that if you turned yours on, bam, you'd get one. I don't know that to be true. I don't know it to not be true. But people love giving memberships around here. So, why not go ahead and just, hey, not for nothing. Turn it on. What you want to turn down a gift? Huh? You gonna look a gift horse in the mouth? Mountain Dew Zero. Although, let me tell you something. Dr. Pepper Strawberries and Cream Zero is the bomb. Let's see. Aku says, I'm also watching in 144p to stretch my mobile data. Doesn't take much to go through 200 gigabyte. No, it doesn't. Not these days. Sunday Jenna is here. She says, oh, hey, Tom Gully. Apparently she's got a t-shirt. I don't know which t-shirt she got, but one day we'll get a photo of that and everybody will be happy. Saying hi to everybody. Randy Ramos says Shep is in the house. Probably in there cooking things up down in Union Station in Indianapolis, making them fancy pizzas that he does. Ronald Bateman says, I tried to turn mine on, but couldn't find out where to do it. Well, the address is right there. It's in the crawl. It's the very end of the crawl. It's disappearing right now, but it'll come back around in just a second. Let's see. Captain Mauser says, Sunny Jenna, good evening. Deanna Marie, good to see you here. I love your avatar, by the way. I always have. Ha, I'm drinking Mountain Dew Baja Blast Zero. I had the option of the Baja Blast, and I didn't get it, but I am going to get it next time. I don't know what the difference is, and I didn't want to take any chances, but I thought, no, I'll try that out next time. Diane O'Brien says, me too, Ronald. Oh, me too, Ronald. Me too, Ronald. Akumugan says they make that in a diet forum. I guess they do. Good evening, Captain. Deanna Marie says, oh, thanks, Tom Gully Show, at the Tom Gully Show. And there's a heart there. It's only a white heart, but I'll accept it. Hey, Chris Abels, who made such a generous donation the last time he was here, and who does that incredible show, Replayables, on Wednesday and Friday nights. I do have to say I was there a little Friday. It's so tough for me on Fridays because I got to get up so early. And anyway, he's the greatest guy on earth, man. He's the salt of the earth. He's a good dude. And if you see the $700 that he lost, or $300, whatever it was, outside the casino, get it back to him. The math and the myth, the gully, says the doctor. And I don't know if I'm either one of those three things. Well, I am a gully. Karen Garvey is here. She says, Tom and chat family, we do have a very cheerful chat room here. I like to say it's the most cheerful chat room on the internet. Terry Nee is here. I don't know if we could do a show without Terry Nee. Chris Abels receiving the love and respect that he so desperately craves and so rightfully deserves. Akumuguman says, form. Sorry, my cat is getting comfortable on my shoulder. Up here in Canada, we have very limited selection of sodas and pop, and also sources of heat because Get that cat off you. It's going to leave cat hair. FCA. I don't know what that means. Future Carpenters of America. I don't know what it means. People saying hi. People saying hi. Gully Birds. Hi, Terry. We got. I think it's great. We have so many names for the group of people here. We got Flock of Seagullies, Gullerinos, Gully Heads, Gully Gang, Gully Birds now. I know there's some other ones lingering out there. Chris says, Tom, you're way too kind. No, just the facts. Terry Nee says CFAs. I also don't know what that means. I didn't go to Penn State, okay? I went to Ball State. They don't teach you fancy things at Ball State. They teach you to excel at communications. Gifts turned on now, says Ronald Bateman. Yeah, just right here. It's middle of the screen right now. See, it says youtube.com/@TomGullyShow/allow_gifts. There it is. Matt is here. Bone, and then something in 666. That's scary. 666 is scary. People saying hi. Gully Bunch. That's another one. Aku. What are the bones all about all of a sudden? I mean, I'm familiar with slang terminology, but still, I don't think that's what you mean. Stone Gullies. Stone Gullies isn't bad because I am, of course, the only stone green host as rated by the Not Even a Show Institute. The only host who will always be given the top rating forever. I can't even lose it. Not even if I tried, I couldn't lose it. I don't know what the hell is going on over there, but we got to do something about that. Let's see. Cheers. Ronald Bateman. Could it be possibly Satan? Bones Up demands. I do like the Bones Up. I do. Bones is Perry Caravello. Bones Up. I don't watch Perry. I've tried, but the screaming is just too much for me. We're confusing the boomer. You're older than I am. It's never been in my room here before, and I've never seen it in the countless other chat rooms that I've seen chatting in the room. Ronald Bateman says Chris James's girlfriend gave birth to their first child. Congratulations to them. Well, congratulations indeed. Who's Chris James? I'm kidding. Even if you are a boomer, you learn these things by asking. I've got that riz. I can ask. Let's see. PCL is an acquired taste. I watched it when Bob was on, and it was like the slightest thing would just make him scream and whatever. Congrats, James family. Yes. Congrats indeed. Tom Gully, the only man to wear a green shirt in the green screen, doesn't consume it. Well, there's two issues there. Number one is this is one of my many Elvis Costello shirts. And Elvis Costello actually has a very popular song amongst us Elvis Costello fans called Green Shirt. And you tease and you flirt and you shine on the buttons on your green shirt. Well, you can please yourself, but somebody's going to get it. Anyway, let's see here. Us boomers never stop learning. We don't. Now think about it. Yeah, we never stop learning. You know why? I know that's true? We started out with a rotary phone, and then we went to the plug-in digital phone, and now we've got the cell phone. And we started out with going inside the bank and writing checks for cash, checks made out to cash. And then we had the ATM, and now we do our banking online. And you know what else? Anyway. Ronald Bateman says Costello heads, Costello buffs. I don't even know what Costello. I don't even know if there's a name for it. If anybody would know, it would be me. Akumugan says Homered Father said it best. I had it, then they changed what it was. It happened to me, and it will happen to you. That's true. I've lived under a rock, so I've never known what's hip. Well, I always knows. Well, I've always been hip, and I've always known what's hip. And what's not hip. You know what's not hip? Walking down the street like this. That ain't hip, Jackson. All right. Doc Torn says, boomers, the inventors of adapt and overcome. You got that right. Good evening, all. Good evening, Lyndon. Uh-oh, I think it's about time for me to open my thing. You know, better open my thing. There we go. There's my thing. It's open right there. It's open right there. Come on. There we go. Now it's open. Okay, now I'm going to tell you about the assassination of President James Abram Garfield. And in case you're wondering who James Abram Garfield was, well, there he is in the traditional picture of the time with his hand inside his jacket that nobody knows why. But that's James Abram Garfield. He's got kind of he's a pretty dapper guy, if you ask me. His pants are a little long, but I guess that's the way they wore them back then. He's got elephant bells on. So, at any rate, let's just start off. Now that you know who James Abram Garfield is, let's just start off by talking about his assassin. Yeah. If ever there was a look that said presidential assassin of the 1800s, that's it. His name is Charles Guiteau. And he tried to get into politics, did Charles Guiteau. And he had failed at a lot of other things before that, of course, naturally. I mean, you don't just become an assassin because not everybody is John Wilkes Booth and is famous at something and becomes an assassin. Most of them fail at a ton of things before they become an assassin. Mm-hmm. Mountain Dew Zero, not mad at it. He failed at theology, he failed at his law practice, he failed at bill collecting, and he also spent some time in this weird utopian community, Oneida, New York. It was a religious commune of the time, and they make you study it in school sometimes. It's whatever. He spent time there, and he was really interested in politics. And former President Ulysses Grant was like the early front runner for the Republican presidential nomination in 1880. So he's one of these guys that was president, decides to run again, and everybody was kind of going, I think he's going to be our guy. And back then they had these, like within the Republican Party, there would be a section of people and they would call themselves the clear thinkers and they would be for one guy, and there'd be another section and they'd be for another guy, all within the same political party. And he was basically supported by this section called the Stalwart faction, okay? And the Stalwarts were like kind of hardcore Republicans, and that's who supported Ulysses S. Grant. And Guiteau was a stalwart, and he was a Grant supporter. Well, during the convention, Grant lost the nomination to a dark horse candidate, James Garfield, the guy I just showed you, who ended up becoming president. And the reason Garfield won was that he wasn't affiliated with any of these internal different little groups like the Stalwarts or the half-breeds or the whatever. He was sort of general. And so once people started seeing how every single vote took place, they were like, well, none of these guys can win. This guy over here doesn't belong to any of these groups, and he's going to get all the excess votes, and that's what happened. So Guiteau had written this speech that was all about Grant running against Hancock. And it was called Grant Against Hancock. So he wrote this speech that he thought was going to just stir the nation and get Grant elected. Well, when Grant didn't get the nomination, Guiteau had to change his speech to Garfield Against Hancock. And he tried to sign on as a campaigner for the Republican ticket, somebody that was campaigning for the actual politicians that were running for office. he never, ever delivered the speech in a public setting. He never got to give the speech, but he had it printed, never paid the bill for the printing, and he distributed several hundred copies. But nobody took notice of this speech whatsoever. None. He had to change his speech from Grant to Garfield so fast that he had references to Grant inside of it, but things Grant had done, like Civil War soldier, things like that, and he just scratched out Grant and put Garfield. So much of the information was just like, he didn't do that. He's talking about Ulysses S. Grant. So the result was that Guiteau gave Garfield credit for accomplishments of Grant's, and even so, Charles Guiteau was convinced, in his head where he's touched a little bit, he was convinced up in here that his speech was responsible for Garfield's victory in the presidential election. And even though nobody took note of his speech, he just printed it up, people went, threw it on the ground. He thought he should get a diplomatic post for his vital assistance. And so he starts going to the White House and various other very high-ranking politicians, because back in 1880, 1881, you could actually get access to these people. And he first asked for a consulship in Vienna, and then he said, I will settle for one in Paris. He loitered around the Republican headquarters in New York City during the winter of 1880 and 1881, expecting rewards for this speech. I mean, he really expected people to walk up to him and say, Charles Guiteau, the man who won the election. No, nobody knew he was. So on March 5th, 1881, the day after the inauguration, back then the inaugurations were later in the year than they are now, he arrives in Washington, D.C., still believing that he's going to be rewarded with some major political placement. He got entrance to the White House, and he actually saw the president 3 days later and dropped off a copy of this god-awful speech as a reminder of the campaign work he'd done on Garfield's behalf. And he spent the next 2 solid months roaming around Washington. He would stay at rooming houses and then sneak out without paying for his meals and lodging. He would hang around hotel lobbies to read old newspapers that had been left behind, and he would get hotel stationery and write letters to people who he thought could get him an appointment from President Garfield. Okay? He also spent time going back and forth between the State Department and the White House, approaching various cabinet members and prominent Republicans to press them about, hey, now I wrote this speech that won the election, and they all just were kind of like, he was destitute, and he became more and more and more slovenly because he was wearing the exact same clothes every single day. And he'd walk through the snowy, cold Washington, D.C. without an overcoat, without hat, gloves, boots. Finally, on May 13th, 1881, he was banned from the White House waiting room because so many people had complained. And the following day, he encountered Secretary of State James Blaine, who told him, obviously they'd had several interactions, told him, never speak to me again on the Paris consulship as long as you live. So people are starting to have quite enough of Charles Guiteau. Now, his family back in 1875 had tried to have him committed, but he escaped. It's not like, well, we're going to start doing the paperwork. No. They had him apprehended and put into an institution and just going through the motions of having him declared insane, and he escapes. So now this manic, crazy guy starts to think more violent thoughts. And he decides that he had been commanded by a higher power to kill the president. And he said, I leave my justification to God. In other words, he's not doing this. God is doing this. So what's he decide to do? Here's some foreshadowing. Yeah. By the way, this is the actual gun that was used in this photo to represent the gun that was used in the assassination. And I'll get to that in a minute. This is the model, but it's not the actual gun. And there's a reason for that I will tell you about shortly. So Guiteau borrows $15. That's about $470 in today's money from a relative and goes out to buy a revolver. He didn't know anything about guns, but he thought he'd need a large caliber gun. So he goes to this store, O'Meara's store in Washington, and he's provided a choice between two guns of this style that you see on screen next to me. And they're both versions of the same gun, which is a .442 caliber Webley British Bulldog, it was called, revolver. One had a wood grip and the other had an ivory grip. Now, he wanted the ivory one. And here's the reason, just to show you how this guy was. He thought an ivory grip would look better as a museum exhibit after he assassinated the president. But that one cost an extra $1, which he didn't have. So the store owner dropped the price for him, and that handgun was recovered and displayed by the Smithsonian in the early 20th century, but it has since been lost. They don't have that gun anymore. They lost it. Nowadays, the government would get it, and nobody would ever see it again. But and by the way, the government could lose it too, which they've done with many Kennedy artifacts. So Guiteau spends the next few weeks stalking Garfield and target practicing. The kick from the gun almost knocked him over the first time that he fired it. This is a large caliber pistol, by the way, not a small. He writes a letter to Garfield saying that the guy that told him never speak to me as long as you live. Yeah, he said that guy, Secretary of State Blaine, should be fired, or you and the Republican Party will come to grief. Now, the letter was ignored, as was all of the correspondence that Charles Guiteau sent to the White House. He continues to prepare, though. He continues to get ready to assassinate the president. He wrote a letter to William Tecumseh Sherman. You know, William Sherman burned Atlanta to the ground, that bloodthirsty, brilliant, commander general of the army during the Civil War. And he asked in the letter protection from the mob that he assumed would gather after he killed the president. So he's writing members of the president's administration going, will you protect me after I kill the president? And he wrote other letters justifying his action as necessary to heal the dissent between all these various factions of the Republican Party that I mentioned earlier. He went to the District of Columbia jail to ask for a tour of the facility because he wanted to know where he would be incarcerated. They told him to come back later because they obviously realized this guy isn't playing with the full deck. The jokers are in, the aces are out, So he spent the whole month of June following Garfield around Washington. And on one occasion, Guiteau trailed Garfield to a railway station as he was seeing his wife, Lucretia Garfield. My wife, Lucretia. He was sending her off to a beach resort in New Jersey, but he decided not to shoot the president then, as Lucretia was known to be in poor health and he didn't want to upset her. So he's got some weird convictions. So anyway, Garfield is scheduled to leave Washington on July the 2nd, 1881 for his summer vacation. And this is in all the Washington newspapers, right? And Guiteau, having seen this, decides to do what they did in the 1800s, which is lay in wait. He decided to lay in wait. And this is the train station that Guiteau hid in because he knew Garfield was coming to it to get on the Baltimore and Potomac Railroad to go to wherever he was going on his vacation. So Garfield came to the station on his way to Williams College, his alma mater, where he was going to give a speech before starting his vacation. And his sons, James and Harry, and that guy, Secretary James Blaine, never again speak to me about the consulship in Paris as long as you live. That guy is with him, as is the son of Abraham Lincoln, Secretary of War Robert Todd Lincoln. And they were all waiting at the station to see the president off. Garfield had no bodyguard or security detail. Early presidents just didn't have those, with the exception of Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War. But most of them didn't have them. And you could walk into the White House back then. Nobody checked you. Nobody asked you anything. You could roam around. It was just a place. So as Garfield enters the station's waiting room, Guiteau stepped forward and he shot the president at point blank range from behind. And I have some video of that. Well, it was 1881. This is what they had for video. There he is. He's, been shot in the back. You can see Guiteau over to the left side is being apprehended by some people. A lot of artist depictions back in the 1880s. So he shoots the president, point blank range from behind, and Garfield cried out, "My God, what is that?" flinging up his arms. Guiteau then fired another shot, and Garfield collapsed. The first bullet grazed the president's shoulder, and the other struck him in the back, passing under the first lumbar vertebra, but missing the spinal cord before coming to rest behind his pancreas. That'll become important later. Guiteau put the gun back in his pocket and turned to leave via a cab that he had waiting for him outside the station. Before he came in, he said, "Hey, cabbie, wait there for me. I'll be out in a second. Just got to shoot the president." And then on his way out, he was rushing out. He collided with policeman Patrick Kearney, who was entering the station because he had heard the gunfire. Now, Kearney apprehended Guiteau and was so excited at having arrested the man who shot the president, he completely forgot to search or take the gun away from him until they arrived at the police station. Kearney asked him, he said, I love how they used to talk back in the 1800s. "In God's name, man, what did you shoot the president for?" And Guiteau responded, "I am a stalwart, and I want Arthur for president," because Chester Arthur was the vice president who, upon the death of James Abraham Garfield, would become the president. The rapidly growing crowd started screaming to have him lynched, but Kearney and several other police officers took Guiteau to a police station a few blocks away. As he surrendered to the authorities, Guiteau said over and over, "I am a stalwart of the stalwarts. I did it, and I want to be arrested. Arthur is president now." And the statement briefly had people thinking that Chester Arthur himself or his supporters had put Guiteau up to assassinating the president, but they quickly figured out that was not correct. So the stalwarts, as I mentioned, were loyal to this Senator Roscoe Conkling, and they supported Grant, blah, blah, blah. Garfield wasn't affiliated with anyone, but Blaine had given his support to Garfield, and that was because Blaine knew he couldn't win the nomination. And so when somebody as big as Blaine does that, now their two forces are joined and other people join on, and that's how Blaine got to be Secretary of State. So Guiteau thought that by shooting Garfield, he was putting Chester Arthur in office, which, frankly, it ended up being true. So Garfield was carried to an upstairs floor of the railway station, and he was conscious. You're not going to believe how long he was conscious, frankly. Here he is being attended to at the scene. He was conscious for a long time. The bullet that grazed his shoulder just did exactly that. Grazed his shoulder, off it went. But one bullet remained lodged in his body, but the doctors couldn't find it. Now, Robert Lincoln, who, remember, his own father was assassinated as president, was deeply upset at the sight of this. And he ended up saying, "How many hours of sorrow I have passed in this town." He wasn't a big fan of Washington, D.C. Garfield was carried back to the White House, and doctors told him that he would not survive the night. Just to show you how great these doctors were. You're not going to survive the night. You just wait and see how long he survives. Nevertheless, he remained conscious and alert. And I should mention that the photo behind me here is all the doctors talking to each other about the condition of the president. Let's not forget that guy there. All these geniuses that are talking about what's going on there. I'll just go ahead and put the path of the bullet there on the screen. It's not a particularly good diagram, but, whatever. Beats watching a line art drawing of him being coddled. The next morning, his vital signs were good, and doctors began to hope for a recovery. And a long vigil began, and Garfield's doctors issued regular bulletins that the American public followed closely throughout the entire summer of 1881. His condition, though, would fluctuate. Fevers came and went. He couldn't keep solid food down, and he spent most of the summer on liquids only. Navy engineers were brought in, and they rigged up an air cooler to sort of dispel the heat of the Washington summer. Remember, no AC back then. If you're lucky, and I mean lucky, you had a ceiling fan. Fans blew air over a large box of ice and into the president's sick room, and it did lower the temperature 20 degrees. But doctors continued probing Garfield's wound with, as was the practice of a good portion of physicians at the time, unsterilized fingers and instruments. No gloves, no antiseptic, just got done eating a roast beef sandwich, let's poke into the president. And they've kept poking around trying to find the bullet. Alexander Graham Bell was brought in because he had devised a metal detector specifically for the reason of finding this bullet. And he was unsuccessful for two reasons. Number one, Garfield's bed frame was made out of metal. And that caused this instrument to malfunction because, after all, it was searching for metal. And also because self-appointed, not Garfield's doctor, but self-appointed chief physician, Dr. Willard Bliss, allowed Alexander Graham Bell to use the device only on Garfield's right side, because that's where Bliss insisted that the bullet had lodged. Bell subsequently tested the machine out elsewhere, and he found that it was in good working order, and that he would have found the bullet if he would have been allowed to use the device on Garfield's left side, where the bullet actually was. On July 29th, Garfield met with his cabinet for the only time during his illness, and the members of his cabinet were under strict instruction from doctors, don't discuss anything upsetting. He became increasingly ill over a period of several weeks due to infection, which caused his heart to weaken. He remained bedridden in the White House with fevers and extreme pains. His weight dropped from 210 pounds to 130 pounds due to his inability to keep food down and digest food. Nutrient enemas were given in an attempt to extend his life because things aren't bad enough for the poor guy. Sepsis and infections set in, and he even suffered from hallucinations for a time. I hate to say this word. I'm going to say it a bunch of times here. It's one of my least favorite words to say. Pus. Is there a worse word in the language than pus? Pus-filled abscesses spread all over his body as the numerous infections raged on. And his condition worsened under the really oppressive summer weather in Washington. On September 6th, he was taken by train to the Jersey Shore, where volunteers built a special spur line overnight from the station to a seaside mansion for his use. And the intent was to get him out of that humidity in the far-off hope that fresh air and quiet might help him. He was propped up in bed before a window with a view of the beach and the ocean. Well, new infections set in, as well as spasms of angina. For those of you who don't know what angina is, that is chest pain or pressure caused by insufficient blood flow to the heart. He died of a ruptured splenic artery aneurysm following sepsis and bronchial pneumonia at 10:35 at night, Monday, September 19th, 1881, in Elberon, New Jersey, 2 months before his 50th birthday. The doctors that said he wouldn't survive the night, they were only off by 78 days. During the 79 days between his shooting and his death, one official act, and that was to sign a request for the extradition of a forger who had escaped and was apprehended after he fled to Canada. That was his only official presidential act. Most historians and medical experts now believe that Garfield, and that's why, yes, did Charles Guiteau kill Garfield? He did, but equally, and maybe some say more responsible for killing him, were his doctors. Because historians and medical experts believe Garfield would have survived if his doctors had been more capable. Most American doctors did not believe in anti-sepsis measures or the need for cleanliness to prevent infection at the time. And several doctors put their unwashed fingers into the wound to probe for the bullet. One doctor punctured Garfield's liver while he was doing this. This self-appointed chief physician had taken over and pushed out Garfield's physician, Jedediah Hyde Baxter. And you know that guy was good because his first name is, after all, Jedediah. Bliss and other doctors who attended Garfield had guessed wrong about the path of the bullet in the body. And they probed rightward instead of leftward, missing the location. But while they were doing that, they created a brand new channel for pus. I say that's the worst word ever, but you know, really, it's the perfect word for what that is. It's pus. The autopsy of President Garfield discovered this error in where the bullet was, and that revealed that pneumonia in both lungs and the rest of his body was filled with pus due to uncontrolled sepsis. If you get sepsis, there's a real good chance you're going to die, even today. There's things they can do now. You're not as bad as we were before, but really, that's a signal. If you're an elderly person and you get it, ooh, look out. The conventional narrative about his medical condition was challenged by a whole lot of people. It's been done so throughout the years. Based on the autopsy report, a lot of people think his gallbladder ruptured and the development of large abscesses, and that just spread. So, anyway. President Arthur was at home when the word came that Garfield had died, and he said, "I hope, my God, I do hope it's a mistake." But the confirmation came by telegram soon after. He was inaugurated early on the morning of the 20th, just the day after Garfield died. And he paid his respects to Mrs. Garfield and then went on to Washington. Garfield's body was taken to Washington. It was in the Capitol Rotunda, as is the custom, and in the United States House of Representatives chamber before being taken to Cleveland, Ohio, where his actual funeral was held. Now, back to Charles Guiteau, because who in the world can get enough of Charles Guiteau? Here's a political cartoon of the time. Thank you, StreamYard. Thank you. Love you, mean it. There's Charles Guiteau with the sign, "An office or your life." In other words, give me an office or I'll kill you, which ended up being the truth. But he went on trial in November. So September, October, November. And who did he pick as a lawyer? His brother-in-law. Okay. He got a lot of media attention during the trial because of his... I wonder what he could get attention for. Oh, yes, bizarre behavior, including constantly insulting his defense team, formatting his testimony in epic poems that he recited at length, and soliciting legal advice from random spectators in the audience via notes he would pass them. He claimed he was not guilty of the murder because of God. It was God's will, and he was only an instrument. He sang a famous Civil War song, John Brown's Body, to the court. He dictated an autobiography to the New York Herald, ending it with a personal ad for a nice Christian lady under the age of 30. He was oblivious to the outrage of the public and the hatred that the public had for him. And he himself was almost killed twice, once while in prison and again while being transported there. At one point, Guiteau argued that Garfield was killed not by him, but by medical malpractice. And oh, by the way, probably wouldn't have got him off of a murder charge, but kind of a good defense, you know? It's like, hey, you know, I only shot the guy. These guys killed him. It's kind of true. He said, "I deny the killing, if Your Honor, please. We admit the shooting." Under the felony murder rule, though, Guiteau was still legally responsible for his death, even if it was not as a direct result of the shooting, and that's the case even today. He was housed at St. Elizabeth's Hospital in southeastern Washington throughout the trial and up until his, well, here's a spoiler, his execution. Guiteau's trial was one of the first high-profile cases in the United States where the insanity defense was considered. He vehemently insisted he had been legally sane at the time of the shooting, but he was not really medically insane, which caused a major problem with his defense lawyers, and that may have made the jury feel like he was just trying to come up with a convenient excuse. He was actively making plans to start a lecture tour after his release and to run for president himself in the next presidential election of 1884. And at the same time, he loved the media circus that surrounded him in his trial. He was dismayed when the jury was unconvinced of the divine inspiration defense, convicting him of Garfield's murder on January 25th, 1882, and sentencing him to death. He appealed, his appeal was rejected, and he was hanged on June 30th, 1882, but not before he got some more crazy in. He famously danced his way up to the gallows. Yes, he did a dance up to the gallows, waved at the audience, shook hands with the executioner, and as a last request, recited a poem he had written called "I Am Going to the Lordy." He requested an orchestra to play as he sang the poem, and that was denied. I guess they didn't want as much fun and frolic as Charles Guiteau at the hanging, as per request with the executioner. Guiteau signaled that he was ready to die by dropping the paper that the poem was written on, and then boom, done. Just a couple things to wrap this up. Part of Charles Guiteau's brain is on display at the Mutter Museum at the College of Physicians of Philadelphia. His bones and more of his brain, along with Garfield's backbone and a few ribs, are kept at the National Museum of Health and Medicine at the Army's Forest Glen Annex in Silver Spring, Maryland. Garfield's assassination was instrumental to the passage of the Pendleton Civil Service Reform Act. Garfield had called for civil service reform in his inaugural address, and so he thought this would make the government more efficient, and to sort of tribute to him, that's the reason that it was passed. Chester Arthur, by the way, did not seek re-election. And the nomination went to that guy, James Blaine. Don't ever speak to me as long as you live. And he lost a very close election to Grover Cleveland. That train station I showed you was later demolished, and there's a placard there that, marks the spot. Now, here's the other thing. The issue of presidential protection. Remarkably, even after Garfield's assassination, none of the presidents asked for, received, presidential escorts, bodyguards, or protection. None of them. And it wouldn't be until the assassination of William McKinley, some 20 years later, that Congress would finally say, okay, United States Secret Service, which was founded to prevent counterfeiting, it's your responsibility to protect the president. So it really wasn't until the early 1900s that the presidents had any sort of protection whatsoever, which seems crazy to us today, but it was a different time. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is, incidentally, the problem of what to do when the president is incapacitated. Congress didn't do anything about that either until Woodrow Wilson had a stroke that incapacitated him for the last half of his presidency. And that's when the 25th Amendment was ratified in 1967, as a matter of fact. And then there's an official procedure when the president's incapacitated. So some extra stuff at the end of Garfield's assassination to tie up there. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is a story. It's a much more interesting story than people usually know of the assassination of James Abram Garfield. Now it's time to get to the most important part of the show, and that is your chats. Your chats. And I see some things here. Oh, hey, SG Fanboy, man, dude, you are such a generous person. I really do thank you. That is really, really, really nice of you. If I can ever do anything for you, I can't imagine what it would be. But man, let me know. That is some of you people are just really, really very, very generous. Very, very generous. Oh, look at this. Randy lives close to Garfield Park. Randy, do you know how many soccer matches I played in Garfield Park in Indianapolis? A lot. A lot. All right, let's get to these chats here. Hold on. Oh, gosh, I'm almost right in the right spot. Golly Gee Whiz says Hamhead. Chris Abels is here, and he says, Hamhead, have a beer. People saying hi to each other. Garfield Park, man, a lot of soccer matches there. A lot of them. You live over there? So you're just west of Broadrip. Well, quite a bit west. You're sort of Kessler. No, is that Juan Solomon Field? Yeah, Garfield is south. It's off of Fall Creek Parkway. Anyway, Captain Mauser said, very Napoleon-like, hand in coat. You got that right, Captain Mauser. Kooky-looking dude. That was back when you could be bald and be president. Chris Abel says, did Garfield get killed on a Monday? Which can explain why he hates Mondays. Tell me why. I think the silicone chip inside his head got switched to overload, and nobody's going to go to school today. They're going to... Anyway. Hammond said, this dude loved lasagna, right? And he hated Mondays? You guys have a little respect for... No. Elephant Bells. I prefer Hell's Bells. By AC/DC? Me too. Hey, Tom. Hey, Paz Patriot. By the way, I got to tell you, I did not like AC/DC until I was like 40. And a friend of mine played a bunch of it for me, and I went, this is the best stuff ever. And then it became my hype music for running. Terry Nee, he has a terrible beard. Who, that Charles Guiteau? Yeah, but a lot of dudes nowadays have the same beard. I can't stand that beard. Aku says, I have a terrible beard, but it's better than that. Yeah, his beard looks like it got caught in something. Jared's here. He says, happy to be here. I'm happy to be here too, Jared. I hope you're doing well, as are the rest of the cult. Chris Abel says, I love Captain Mauser's name, by the way. That's awesome. It is a pretty awesome name. Religion and politics don't mix, especially with that guy. Thank you, StreamYard. Tell you what, man. Doc Torn says he died on my birthday. That wasn't very nice of him. What a downer. Did you just pull Garfield the cat? I think they did. I think they did. James Avery Garfield the cat. Hey, here's a little known fact. As you know, I went to Ball State, and another guy that went to Ball State was a gentleman by the name of Jim Davis, creator and illustrator of Garfield. And I have hung out with Jim Davis many times because he owned a radio station that I worked for in Muncie, Indiana. This company's called Paws Inc. And yeah, he's a pretty cool dude. Captain Mauser says, thanks, Chris Abels. I thought it was a clever one to come up with. Absolutely great name. It is a great name. Terry Nee says, I think Guiteau was a schizophrenic or major bipolar. He was something. He had a definite delusions of grandeur and narcissistic disorder, that's for sure. Oh my gosh. Just like someone else we all know. Captain Mauser says, sounds like John around the Tonight Show. Well, that's what I was getting to there, Captain Mauser. Chris Abel says, absolutely, John mentality or KB not paying. Exactly. Quantum Melendez. It's, yeah, I hate to say it, but it is more and more like John. Karen Garvey, I had to Google it. Chris Abels is laughing. We always like it when Chris Abels is laughing. So a committed whack job. Yeah, he was committed. He was committed. Am I blocked? I can't say. No, you're not blocked. I would never block you. SG Fanboy, you're the last person on earth that I would ever block. Captain Mauser is something similar to something completely different. And now something completely different. SG, is it an iPhone? Because I have trouble on mine, says Chris Abel. I guess a lot of people have a little bit of sporadic problems with their iPhones on YouTube. Homie, don't play that. Thank you for being here. Says, wow, great Woody Woodpecker, Tom. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. True, homie. It was on point. Do you like that? I can do that anytime I want. I sometimes do it for myself, just to amuse myself. Let's see here. We got 9 minutes. Android, Chris, but at least I'm not blocked. You're not blocked. No way. Homie, hey there. Sounds like current day politics. Very, very similar. SG, this dumb iPhone won't let me buy memberships, and I don't know why. Joe, producer Joe can tell you how to make that work because he told some other people. Turn on your gifted memberships, though, Chris. Maybe somebody will gift you one. Doctor says the gun was lost. Yeah, he wanted a suite, not a cell. It's haunted by someone whose house you took, Chris. Exactly. Chris is flipping the house that's haunted. Hell yeah, New Jersey. Lucretia. Good Megadeth song. Well, Lucretia, there's only two Lucretias that I know. One's this chick and the other one's Borga. So, beach resort. Beach resort or place to abscess and die. Let's see here. Chris Abel says, true. Homie, don't play that. I chuckled when he said that. You know, people are just, it's such a cheerful chat room. Man, I'm telling you what. StreamYard, how many times you want me to click this? It was pre 9/11. Yeah. Well, it was pre a lot of stuff, but you used to be able to just walk in there, man. There used to be pigs and chickens in the front yard. I'm not joking, of the White House. Garfield looks like he's doing the hokey pokey. Well, he did turn himself around, to be fair. He's not wrong. I'm going to put this up again because that is just really above and beyond the Call of Duty. That is so nice. SG, thank you. Thank you so much. Chris Abel says, the doctors were busy playing poker and he interrupted their game. I should probably tell you guys, Thursday of this week, I have a meeting at 3 o'clock, 20 miles from here, about 20 minutes from here. It's only supposed to take 45 minutes. So I should be back in time to do the show. There's a chance it'll be a little bit late. The doctors were busy playing poker. He interrupted their game. It does look like that, doesn't it? These guys, though, it looks like they were playing bridge, not poker. Probably talking about how much to bill his HMO. Captain, that is very funny. DC was and is a swamp. Shudder. Homie Don't Play That says, I can't super chat either. Well, you don't have to. Don't you worry about that. Captain Mauser says, was one of John's relatives, one of his doctors, dirty fingers and all. That dude's fingernails. It's like, wouldn't you just cut them out of sheer gripping things? Weeks. Oh my God. Nutrient enemas aren't that bad, to be honest. Well, it depends on the nutrients. The worst word in the English language is loogie. I don't know. Pus. It's just Robert. I didn't finalize the germ theory of disease till 1884, just after Garfield. There's a really good British documentary about a doctor that was mainly in charge of births, obstetrician type guy. And women were dying of eclampsia and all sorts of stuff because the doctors weren't using their antiseptic and antisepsis and all that stuff. And he goes just full on rage on this one doctor that came in and this woman died. And he's like, yeah, you're not washing your hands. That's why, you know. Garfield loves lasagna. He does. And Odie, he hates. It was a Monday. I knew it. Deanna Marie says, wow. So he did jinx Mondays for Garfield the cat. Let's see. Fiat Enema. Did he brown out of his mouth like the South Park episode? He would have survived if he had Reagan's doctors. Yeah, he would have. Oh, God. SG fanboy. Moist pus. Moist. People don't like that word either, so combining them together. By the gods, also, Lotra people don't like, a lot of people don't like moist. Pus is such a, puss is better. Tongue in cheek, moist is better than dry. My husband's nickname for me is Puss Pocket. Sorry, I'll see myself out. Well, that's okay. My girlfriend, I have two, she tells me I'm her old lady. And then the other one is Sugar Britches. Power stance. You're a lucky lady, Dupa. You're a lucky lady. Dear God, Karen. Well, if God said so, I guess I have to shoot him. Terry Nee, that is funny. We are both lucky. Perfect timing. I just got home. It's very much perfect timing when you get here at the end. You don't have to watch as much. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Uncle Hack. Oh, yeah, I saw that today. I saw Bob do that today. He said he was King of England. That's what they did to him. Chris Abels, I will be doing a ceremony officially changing my name very soon. Okay, glad you announced that here. He gave a thumbs up. Jack, I've been to the Mutter Museum. It's super interesting. Charles Guiteau's mom was also nuts. Not surprising. My ginger cake is turning in my tummy. Ginger cake. People saying hi to Uncle Jack. Homie, don't play that. Hey, girl. People saying hi. Most cheerful chat room on the internet. Jumping in the shower, but still listening. Uncle Jack, soaping up to the Tom Gully Show. Anyway, timely government action as always. Terry Nee says it was the term "stop touching it." It's where the term "stop touching it" came from. Great story, Tom. Jack, don't jump while you're in here. Foot rub. I've been working all day, Tim. Let's see here. Awesome lesson tonight, Tom. Thank you, man. Thank you, Tom. It was interesting learning more. Thank you, Captain Mauser. Hey, by the way, we got about a minute and a half. You got to go to that other show, Shawnee Zone. I believe is on right after this. I don't know what else is happening, but that you got to do. So I got to get in a minute and a half. Here we go. We love your show, Tom. Thank you, homie. I appreciate that. Tom, did you travel to D.C. to observe Garfield's body? No, I was busy that day. Stalwart of Stalwarts, great show today, Mr. Lucky. Thank you, Gilman. Oh, homie, you didn't have to do that. Homie, thank you for the $5. Can you imagine being able to say, hey, guys, I'm going to stop at the White House on our way to the movies and take a squat and drop a deuce? My beard tickles my hamhead. I meant that literally. Thank you, Dupa. My super chat came late because it wasn't working. Damn them. They're supposed to be helping. They're not helping. Homie, not you blocking me, Tom. I meant YouTube. Sometimes I say naughty things. Okay, I've got like 40 seconds. So when I do it, I'm going to go to the closing, and I'm going to put all your comments up during the closing. For Chris, I'm going to chug this water. It's Monday. Cheers, Gilman. If Jenna is still here, tell Frog that tonight's retail thumbnail is perfect. I hope that starts at 8 or 9. I don't know. Chris, I'm sure you would have tried it more than once, back in the day. Good night, Gracie. Good night, Gracie. Aku, I think they canceled me. Rico, no longer up there. What I can see. I just noticed Matt Mauser was going to screenshot. Oh, I got a lot more here. I'm not going to get to them. Hey, you guys got shows to get to. I want you to watch those shows. I'm going to watch those shows myself. I'm going to put the rest of these chats, as many of them as I can, during the closing. God, are you guys awesome, man. You are the best. And we'll try to do another good show for you tomorrow. And with all that being said, the only thing left to say is, till next time, we'll see you next time. Right out of my pants.